Hey, welcome to the Orcas Creative Kit. So this kit is all based and centered around a gorgeous stamp set, and it's called the Floral Sentiment stamp from our just released core catalogue. Now this is also based around brand new colours. So we are pulling in all the new colours that have been released with Close to My Heart this month. Beautiful shades of different colours in there. In this set, we're also looking at bringing in just one of those colours in our ink. There are a whole range of other colours we are using that are from existing inks that people will have. And what you can create with this kit is a set of 6 Slimline cards, which are absolutely stunning. Just nice little simple, effective sentiments and ways of using that stamp set so that it just looks gorgeous. And then we're going to take a lot of those techniques and create them into a layout. So this layout is using, in front of me, using a lot of the techniques that we've discovered through playing with the stamp and creating those cards and making a beautiful layout that's going to work with so many different themes. So what you get in your little kit, if you're interested, you can purchase this right through to the end of August 2022. You will get, first off, you can just choose to go for option 1. And option 1 is to purchase a stamp set. If you purchase a stamp set for $39.50 plus postage, you will get the instructions for all of these projects as part of a little bonus, really. If you choose to get some of the colours, you will get the stamp set, you'll get the colours, plus some white daisy cardstock and 6 cards, Slimline cards and envelopes, and that there is $65. If you choose to add on top of that the periwinkle ink, you will also get a little bonus pack of the little die cut flowers and all those cards and card stocks and stamp set as I've shown you already. So there's 3 tiers to this kit this month, just so that you can get your hands onto whatever part of it you're keen to try out. So today I'm going to start you off with the first 2 cards in the Slimline card range. So enjoy, listen, have a little watch. If it's something you want to try out for yourself, get in touch with me and get hold of that kit. Talk to you soon. Hello guys, we're going to start with the Floral Sentiments card set and the very first card that's in the instructions. So this is what we're aiming to make, all 6 of these. They use all the brand new colours of the that have been released, and they use the beautiful stamp set Floral Sentiments, which you will have in your kit. Okay, so in the instructions you have all the cutting guides at the start. So I'm not running through cutting with you. If you've got any queries, just give me a call. But when you look at your set, and as I have done here, I have marked on it the extra pieces for the layout, but you'll see that there is a number beside all the bits. So we're going to start with card number 1. So we're going to be using the Seabrook cardstock that's cut at 3 by 8. And because it's got an asterisk, we're going to be using the dark side of that Seabrook cardstock. So there's a few there. That's number 1 on that one. And number 1, we need a periwinkle square at 2 1/4 by 2 1/4. Let me just take a look what else. We also need a 3/4 by 8 1/2 inch strip of the mist. We need, oh gosh, what else is there? Oh, we need a little bit of melon. So we need a 2 1/4 by 2 1/4 square of melon for this card. And I believe we will need some white daisy over the back. So let's have a little look. Yes, we need a 2 by 2 inch piece, 3 of them of white daisy. So I think that's mostly all the bits and pieces we're going to be using, and we're going to be creating this lovely card that's got the 3 boxes. So I'll leave that one there, move the others out of the way, and let's get started with the stamping. So that's where I always start with these projects. Start with the stamping, and the instructions help you. They've got all the bits and pieces written down the side. So we'll walk through that really nice and quickly. So I'm just going to turn over one of my mats so that I've got a spongy surface, and grab my little envelope that has all the bits and pieces for this card in it. So I have already laid it out and checked that I had the right pieces pre-cut. So these are all going to be stuck onto the background card base. So I'm going to construct it first and then put it onto the card base itself. So we have got the dark side of our Seabrook. That's going to be our starting point. We are going to be laying over that our strip of mist, which will here over here, and then we're going to have our 3 photo mats that are, well, placeholder mats that are going to stand out. So you can choose from that whether you go for your darker or your lighter colors of those. So those are all going to be adhered, and I would raise those with a little bit of foam tape just to make them stand out slightly. And then the bits we need to stamp are these 3 squares of white daisy that I had cut. So we're going to start off with the first one, which is our little floral arrangement. I'll just move this out of the way so we make sure we don't get things all wet, or inky, I should say. So I'm going to start off with, the ink colours that we'll be using, or at least I'll be using. You can use any ink colours. So just play with colours that you have. But I'm going to be using Sundance for the yellowy orange effect. I'm going to be using the lovely green of Sage. I'm going to be using the deep bluey grey of Harbour. And then Papaya to have that sort of depth like the melon shade coming through. Okay, now you will need a scrap piece of paper because we're going to be doing a bit of second generation stamping. So I've got sounds noisy. I've got a little messy piece of scrap paper that I'm just going to rest in front of me. Right, so we're going to start off with getting the flower that's just a flat looking, I suppose these are hibiscus type flower sitting here. And we're going to use our brand new, I didn't pull it out. That's why I couldn't find it. Our brand new ink pad that I've recommended with the kit and given with the full kit, which is Periwinkle, to do the initial flower. Okay, so that's just a nice, easy little flower. I've got it on its block, and it's just going to be first generation, so nothing difficult there. Okay, you can have it in whatever direction you like. There kind of is an up and a down. It's going to go slightly to the left and slightly up. And that's our first little flower. Then we're going to stamp in Sage our little leaves. Now the leaves, there are 2 leaves here. There's so many variety of leaves you can choose from the stamp set. I've just chosen this one over here, and I'm going to use that for both. We're going to do first and second generation actually on our project. So I ink it up, do one at first, just lightly, and then one at second. And hold the second one down for quite a bit, because you have used up most of the ink on the first one. So by holding it down that little bit longer, you're going to get a better effect. Then we've got the small little flower down here using Sundance. So I'm going to use, let's just have a little look. I'm just going to use that full generation, so the whole thing's showing. So I'm just going to stamp that just below these others, so they're still part of the cluster. And that one that I have used, I forgot to show you, was this one in here. Okay, and then to finish it off, we need to put little centres into these pieces. So the centre into that one that I just did with Sundance is actually going to be stamped with my pinky shade of Papaya. And it's just a little circle. You can see it's quite close to the stamp itself. There's a little circle. We're going to use that one. I've just got it on the back, actually, of this block already. Makes it a bit trickier to find where I'm putting it. That one's going in there. Now, for the other one, I actually didn't get it out. For the insert of this one, we're actually going to use just this cute little piece over here. So I'm just going to pull that one off my carrier sheet, pop that onto the back of my block, and we are going to use the lovely Harbour shade for that one, just to finish it off. Let me just find my Harbour, ink it all up, try and make it go the right direction, and that looks rather cute. Okay, so we'll just clean off those stamp sets. I've got my little, my new little carrier case actually. That is so handy because it just sits flat beside you, but nothing gets wet. So I'm just going to tap those ones off, and then we will move on to the next little square. So the next little square is actually doing our sentiment. So I'm going to stick with the best wishes. And what we're doing is we're going to grab the circle stamp, but we're going to flip it over on the block. So it's underneath. So all we're actually going to get is the flat part of the stamp, not the raised part. So we're going to use Sage for this, but we're going to do second generation. So I'm going to use my scrap paper for this. So I'm going to ink it all up, make sure it's inked all the way around, stamp off, and then stamp into the centre of that square. Make sure you hold it for a few sort of seconds, given that it was second generation. You still want a bit of colour to come through. And we're going to finish that one off with a little sentiment. And I'm using Best Wishes, and again I'm using Harbour, the deeper colour, to pop that Best Wishes into the centre. With all stamping, I find it nicer and it gives a better image if you are a bit more gentle with it and you just hold it a little bit longer rather than pressing down heavier and being real rough on it. That gives a bit of a wobbly look, so we don't want to do that. Okay, the final little section we need to stamp for this one is another little flower, and this time we're using this fun one actually here. It's that way around is how it's going to be stamped. Okay, we're using papaya ink for that, so I'll find that to begin with. Papaya ink. And then we're going to do our leaves the same as what we did last time. So that's papaya first generation. Then we're going to pull out the sage, grab that leaf we were using, ink it up and do first and second generation again. So relatively quick with the first one, and then hold it down a bit longer with your second one. Okay, that's really cute. And then we're going to use that little flower once again. So that was our little bursty flower. And we're going to do it second generation with the papaya, just to give a lighter pink effect. So we'll grab our papaya, we're going to stamp it off, and then we're going to stamp it on. Okay, now we just also need to finish off our little centers once again. So I will pull my little centers onto this block, so it's a bit smaller. We're going to be using an oval one. This is the oval near that one here, and we're actually going to be using that with our Sundance. I'll keep the papaya out, I'm going to use it in a second. Sundance to fill in that larger flower image, like that. And then we're going to get the smaller dot circle, the one we used earlier, which is positioned here on the carrier sheet, and we're going to use papaya and pop that in the center. So that's finished off that. The only thing we haven't done, I forgot to pull in, was the sage little stem. So we'll grab that little sage stem. Now that is the single mini flower stem with leaves to the side there. Pop that onto your block. Close off some of these and pull the sage in to do that last little stamp. So we'll just have to do that on a slight bit more of an angle than the example as I moved it slightly. So we've got our three ready to go. They are going to be sitting on your base. So I'll pull that back in. That's just going to work nicely. So you can choose whether you raise up both, like match those and then raise them up, or have that one flat down and then just raise the white up. They both give a different effect. You also, if you wish to, you can go around the edges of these with your ink. So this one would look really nice with sage around the edge. You could do all three with sage, or you could do bring in the colour behind it. So the periwinkle around this one, and a yellow Sundance around that one, and our sorbet behind that one. So you can do that little bit of edging. I'll just show you what I mean with the centre one. So the sage, I'm just going to do sage for them. I'm just going to go back and forth on the edge, and that just gives a little bit more depth to that piece. Now, if I put this straight down on my cardstock willy-nilly, I could get lines off that ink. I like it to dry slightly, but that's going to sit on there, and you can see there's quite a nice little outline. I'll pull it a bit closer so you can see how it gives a little bit of an outline by doing that. So that's a little extra you could do to construct that card. So that is card number 1, nice and easy. I will show you the finished effect at the end, but you don't need to see me sticking everything together. So once that's done, we're now going to finish this and move on to card number 2. Right, we are now up to card number 2. So card number 2 is using, from our instructions, we can see that's going to be using a Seabrook base again, using the dark side of it. So that's a number 2 cut, and a number 2 cut is also doing a 2x2 square and cutting on the diagonal, which will give us our triangles. We're going to also, from periwinkle, get a 2x2 triangle. We're going to, from mist, get ourselves a 2x2 square and a 2x2 diagonal triangle. From honey butter, we're going to get the 2x2 diagonal triangle. From the melon, we're going to do the 2x2 triangle melon. And then just over the page with white, we're going to do both a 2 5/8 square and we're going to be doing a 1.5 inch square for 2 different pieces of white, and we're also going to be using a bit of scrap white to do the Project 2 stamping there. So let's get cracking with this one. It's not a difficult one once again, but this time we're actually going to do a bit of background stamping on some of our pieces. So I'll grab my envelope with all the bits in it. I should have a lot of triangles and some squares. This looks right. So here's all my triangles ready to go. I have got my white pieces ready to go with the little matting. In fact, it's my first one. I accidentally did it in periwinkle. This time I'm going to do it in mist, just like it tells us. And there's my backing piece as well. So we will be layering all those up, sticking them all down, but let's just get the stamping out of the way. So we just need to find our our little periwinkle. In fact, I should have had 2 periwinkles by the look of it, which I will grab another one of in a minute. Let's just go back to the instructions and make sure that it does tell you to do that. Oh no, it's not. It's Seabrook. And they're only telling you one. Yeah, it's 2 by 2, but they've also done a 1 7/8 by 1 7/8 up there and diagonaled it. I missed that one, so that's our one above. It's a very slightly smaller triangle. So you could just use the 2 of them, to be fair. Let me just get out the spare triangle that I'm sure I've got in my kit here. Here we go. This one will do the job. And we're going to start off with using the light side of this and doing some background stamping. So I'll pull in some scrap paper, pull those to the side, pull in some scrap paper, because we will be stamping over the edge. And we will be using sage, and we'll be getting from our stamp set one of these cute little vines. There's a couple of them. You only need one. Pull one off, which I've got on my block now. So to do the background stamping, we are going to do both first and second generation. So I'm going to do a stamp coming off the edge in first generation, and then I'm just going to stamp it one more time in second generation. So you can see how we've got that twice. This time I'm going to come in with first generation, and then I might pull in a bit of second generation down below. We'll do that one more time, first generation, and then some second generation. Oh, that was a little bit of both, because I hadn't stamped it properly, and we'll do a final little bit. So there we go, nice and easy, just a little bit of background stamping to create your own patterned piece of paper. Then the only other stamping we need to do is our sentiment and then the little flower on the scrap piece. So let's get a scrap piece of white daisy. We're going to stamp using our nice open flat flower again, and this time in Sundance. So that's a nice cool yellow. We'll bring in that yellow. Do a little stamp. Make sure there's enough space for your leaf as well, because we're going to link the 2, so we only have to cut them out as one piece. We've also got the little center piece, which is going to be using papaya. And this little center came from here, the little circle that is near that stamp. That's the one we're going to use in the center. And then we're going to just do one simple leaf with our sage coming down, and that will allow us to create a little cluster that we're going to trim out for this piece. So we've got the 2 pieces created, got one more little bit to do, and that is our sentiment. So we're going to take our smallest little square, and in fact I don't need that backing sheet, so we're going to take the smallest little square. We're going to get, if you got to do the same sentiment as me, I've done congratulations. So you're going to get that sentiment, and then you're going to turn it over. So that's the way it should be on the block, but I'm going to turn it over so that you've just got the flat edge showing. Just a little bit like we did last time. We actually are going to do second generation stamping. I'll pull this back for that. So I'm going to ink it all up in sage, stamp off, and then stamp into the center of this little sentiment. So what it's actually done is created a little background place for our sentiment. Now it's not a perfect lining up with the words, because it's not quite symmetrical, but it's so close that it works really well. We're going to flip that over. We're going to bring in our Harbour ink to do the sentiment. Okay, and I'm just going to line that up over the top of that background image. It's a really cool trick to just give a little bit more to your sentiment. You'll see it's got that light green. It's probably quite hard showing up on the camera, but it is there. And that is all we have to do in preparation for this card to be put together. So get out your little scissors. What we're going to do is trim this up. Now, with trimming, always move my left hand and the piece of paper rather than my scissors. So my scissors are always going to stay in that same direction. It's actually my hand that's moving the paper underneath. And I'm also giving it a nice little white border. By giving it a white border rather than going right up to the image, I'm going to make it look a little neater. If I went right up to the image, it actually starts to not look so good. The white allows us to get away with not getting it perfectly even, but it just gives a nice little matte effect. So it's definitely the way to go with your trimming. So that didn't take long. We've got a nice little sentiment ready to go onto our card. So let's just line this one up. We'll do this one together as there's a little bit more lining up to do. So I'll just flick this board over so we've got a nice surface to work on. So I'm going to bring in the card base. Now you will have 6 of these card bases in your kit if you've gone for the kit with cardstock. And I just line it up. Now they do pre-score them, but I do find that I sometimes have to line up the corners and just make sure it is scored at the right place to get a really even effect. So then I'm going to pop my little Seabrook, I keep saying Seabrook, I think I'm right saying Seabrook. Yes, Seabrook cardstock at the back. Still got to learn the names of all of these new colours. Got to get them right. Okay, so I'm just going to adhere that on. You can use your mat to help you make sure there is an even spacing all the way around, which is about 1/4 of an inch all the way around. So that's your base, and then you're just going to line up your pieces. So this triangle is from the top coming down, about 1/4 of an inch down is where we're going to position that. So if I'm looking at the top of this Seabrook piece, I'm going down 1/4 of an inch to where I line up the top of the triangle. So I'll pop that one on. Line that up nicely. And then we're going to come from the bottom and we're going to start with our periwinkle piece, and that's going to be 1/4 of an inch up from the base of that Seabrook cardstock. So I'm using the lighter side. It really doesn't matter. It's your preference which side you use on this. So 1/4 of an inch up, and then we're actually going to do 3/4 of an inch between this base triangle and the next one's base triangle. So 3/4 of an inch, trying to keep them straight. I actually think that one was very slightly off. Let's see if I can lift it up before it gets too set. That's ways. There we go. That looks slightly better to me. So I'm going to go up, that's 1/2 an inch, so 3/4 of an inch is at that line there. So you will want your measurements underneath you. The mat is just so helpful for this. Then we're going to grab our honey butter, and once again we're doing 3/4 of an inch up. So that for me is up to this line here. Make sure it's even. There we go, up to that line there. Then we're going to go into the light version of our Seabrook, so it stands out against the background. 3/4 of an inch up, makes it up to here. And then the final one is mist. It's not a bad effect, these triangles, just something a bit different. Just bringing in any geometric shape and repeating it does always create quite a fun effect. So to finish off, we are going to layer up all our squares here. So I'll do that first, and then you'll see they've actually used a journaling pen. I should line this up properly. I've used a journaling pen to go around the edge to create 2 nice looks. So I'm going to do that journaling before I move that off. Oh, it appears my black has gone walkabouts. Right, my new black lip pen is my favourite to go to, but I'm going to use my older black journaling just to do the same thing. Just go around the edge by hand. Nice and easy. Because it's only a small piece, I'm okay just going away from me like this. But if it was a big long strip, I tend to go from the top and then draw towards myself. You have a bit more control that way. So that would be the preference, but as they're only little, I'm just sort of going away towards the corner. Journaling always adds a little something. You could even on this card do a bit of a journal all the way around the entire card, seeing as you've got that effect happening. So this last one is going to go in the center. I'll just put a little bit of tape on here. You could foam this one up, make it stand out. But I'm actually going to foam up this one so that the whole lot stands out. So I am really frugal with my tape. So I always use up all these little bits and pieces that come inside the shaker elements that I've used. So that's what I use on cards because I quite like the deeper foam so it stands out more. So that's what I'm using here, just using up all the little bits and pieces. Got a few little extras in there. And then I'm going to peel all those pieces off so that we've got a nice background that'll look slightly shadowed. I only used a very small foam tape on that one and I don't think it stands up enough. So that's why I'm doing it this way. Flip it over. Place it in between the two so it looks nice. Just use your eye. And then we're going to decorate it with our little piece that we had created, which I will raise with just thin foam tape. And of course, you're going to pull in, if you have received these, if you've got the full pack, you would have received these as a little bonus. These are little thin die cut flowers. So you can pull in some of the different shapes that you wish. I will bring over my little open pack. And I'm going to use a little open flower. So that's going to tuck behind there. And I might use a larger open flower. So I'm going to use this one up here. That's going to tuck behind there. And then a little small one. Here's another one here. That will do the trick. Poke out the little middle bit. Oh, they've come out nicely. And that's going to sit there. They do give a really nice extra finish if you've got them in your stash. They're only $8 for the pack. Really good value and just so lovely and thin. So they just don't give any too much bulk, but they just give a really nice extra. So that's card number 2 completed.